Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's NBA Draft Profiles presented by Unified Healing. My name is Rob Dauster. I got Terrence Oglesby with me today, and in this episode, we are going to be breaking down UConn's star center, Donovan Clingan, a man, T.O., that played 2 seasons in college and left with 2 national championship rings. He averaged 13 points, 7.5 boards, 2.5 blocks, and 1.5 assists this past season, playing just 23 minutes. He missed a handful of games. I think it was 5 games because of an injury. He missed the fall because of an injury. And I do believe if there's one major question mark about him long term, it's the health of his feet and his lower extremities. When you've got guys that are 7'2" with foot problems, it's never the greatest thing in the world, but he was dominant over the last month of the season. He averaged 15 points, 8.5 boards, 3.2 blocks, and 1.8 assists in UConn's national championship run. He had 22 points, 16 boards, 2 blocks in their Big East tournament title game win over Marquette. He was a monster. He was King Kong over the last probably 6 weeks of the season. What do you make of him as an NBA prospect?
Well, first of all, I love what he brings to the team. There's a few things. He was asked to be a decision maker at the top of the key a lot of times for UConn, whether they were running some of these high split actions, which is very common in the NBA game. He processes the game really well as kind of that point center in the middle of the floor when guys are cutting to the rim. And I think Donovan Clingan's a plus passer. I have one comparison that I think people are going to roll their eyes at initially, but once you kind of dive into it, I think people are going to be able to see the potential of what he's able to be. If he's on a good team by year 3 in his career, and he's got a couple of good scoring guards who move without the basketball, this is a guy who's going to be a high impact guy for a long time, provided that he stays healthy. I think he processes the game at a high level. I think his jump shot is going to come along and become a weapon because it's not broken. And I think he was limited a little bit, put into a box a little bit at UConn for the greater good of the team, which you like to see him being willing to accept that role. I think he's capable of more. And as the free-flowing NBA game comes to him, I think you're going to see his game expand accordingly. I think he's going to be a quality shooter, a quality decision maker, and I think he was a really good passer. And I don't know exactly what his assist numbers are. Oh, excuse me, assist and a half. I think he's going to be able to bump those numbers with more space, his quick decision making, and his processing power is awesome at that center spot. And that's, if I'm looking at it as an NBA GM, that's what I'm most excited about, especially if I have a couple of other guys in line that he'll be able to get the ball to.
Yeah, I have the same stuff written down. I do think that how good he develops as a shooter, or how well he develops as a shooter, and how well he kind of picks up on being able to read what is happening in the offense. The one thing I agree with you on his passing ability. The one question that I have is how much of that is him making a read and how much of that is him being told, hey, when you get the ball here, this is going to happen and you make this pass. You know what I mean? Like how much of that stuff was scripted. I tend to think that it was more him reading the offense and understanding what was going to come open. But I do think that was the one kind of question I had about it.
But there were a couple where like Cam Spencer would throw it to him real quick. He'd be 10 feet out. Cam would cut quickly and he could catch it high, get rid of it with a bounce pass as fast as he almost caught it. Like some of these things, these quick decision making, I understand what's going to happen a half second quicker than normal centers at 7 foot or 7'2" usually do. Downright impressive. I'm just throwing this out there and I have no information to back it up. But if I'm the Atlanta Hawks and DeJounte Murray is there and they're going to keep him, and Trae Young is there and they're going to keep him, and you need somebody to where those guys can run rampant and do whatever they want away from the ball, and you have to have somebody to get it to them. Imagine a split action with those 3 guys. It's going to take Clingan some time, but imagine a split action on one side of the floor with Murray, Young, and Clingan finding them on some of these cutting plays. It's downright dangerous.
Yeah, especially if he develops as a shooter and he's not a guy that you can kind of leave and send 2 to the guards when they're running off the screen there. What do you make of him long-term defensively? He's got the size, he's got the length. I think he's terrific in drop coverage. He really has a sense for And he showed this later on in the season. There was foul trouble at the start of the year. I'm willing to write some of that off on uh, injury issues and not being in shape and kind of being a little bit out of sync. You know, once he kind of figured out his rhythm, he did not really deal with foul trouble once you got to February and March. And I think that he's going to be fine as kind of a rim protecting
Well, he's huge.
5-man drop coverage, right? Yeah, and he understands where he needs to be defensively. I don't think he is as fleet of foot as some people may have expected. And while he is a very mobile guy that can get up and down the floor, he's not the most explosive athlete in the world, especially vertically.
Man, you've got my scouting report written all over that one. I do think he is a good floor athlete. I don't know that he's this explosive. I can get off 2 feet and meet Anthony Edwards above the block, if that makes sense. When I say above the block, I mean the block on the glass. Like that's kind of what I'm insinuating there. However, he's very smart in space. The thing that does scare me, however, him guarding out on the ball on the perimeter, is he has some bad habits, and he wasn't asked to do that. He wouldn't get in a stance, and he almost gave too much cushion. When that NBA line goes even further out, and he's tasked with guarding a Joel Embiid, who is seldom healthy, but when he's healthy, he's a handful. A Jokic who can step out and make shots happen, and you're taking him away from the rim. That's where I worry a little bit, because he's not the most fleet of foot, as you alluded to. If he's not playing drop coverage, I don't know what you do with him. And he is huge. He's a mountain of a dude, but very undisciplined on the perimeter. And he's got some habits you can change, but I'm not sure how much better he's going to be able to be defensively outside of about 20 feet.
Yeah. I don't disagree with it in terms of what he did this season. I do think I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt. Put it like this: I would roll the dice on him high in this draft, saying a lot of those issues were missing an offseason, missing a preseason, and dealing with some injuries during the season, where the focus was, all right, let's actually get this dude into shape without worrying about his feet as much as focusing on your feet need to be here and you need to do this defensively.
Yeah.
In terms of weaknesses, we touched a little bit on the shooting and the passing in terms of what his ceiling could be. I would say that I think the biggest concern that I have with him, and we saw this a little bit at the college levels, that he has a very high center of gravity, right? And he's not going to kind of overpower you. I have a theory on why this has kind of happened, and tell me if you agree with any of this. When he played high school basketball, he played at a public school in Connecticut. And when you're playing at a public school in Connecticut, guys like me are playing the center spot, right? 6'3" dudes, 6'4" dudes. When you're 7'2", like Donovan Clingan is, and he gets a rebound and he gets his elbows out and he's kind of pivoting and swinging there, he's hitting people in the face, right? He's getting technicals, he's getting fouls called because of that. And he kind of learned to play thin as a result, right? And I don't think he's quite figured out in the post, in the paint, and around the rim how to play as big as, like, he's 7'2", 280, right? But I don't think he's quite figured out how to play 7'2", 280 when he has the ball in his hands around the basket. And for me,
I also heard he's dropped some weight too.
Yeah,
he's dropped some weight. Yeah,
he's dropped some weight, and he's also like repositioned that weight from, maybe having a little bit of a spare tire to maybe being a guy that might be a little bit more look better at the beach, so to speak. So,
hey, here's the thing about him.
You know what he never does?
When he was in high school, he was heavy.
Yes,
and he got himself in good shape his freshman year, even better shape his sophomore year, and now he's slimmed down even more. You can tell he likes playing. And anytime a guy is 7 foot or above and they actually want to be there and they like to work, I mean, bells start going off for me. You can tell he understands what's at stake and that he enjoys playing. To me, that's a major thing, because it's a small thing, but you also realize, like, this guy's going to come in, he's going to put meaning in his work. And then on top of that, like, the fact that he continues to lose weight, to me, that's a positive. He's never going to be this fleeting, like, moving his feet athlete on the perimeter, but he's smart enough and he's going to be fast enough with some of that dropped weight to protect the rim at a high level. And I think those habits through an 82-game season, by game 30, I think he's going to be on top of it, and he wants to get better to where he can be on the floor more. The world of potential. In any draft, I think he's a top 10 pick in any draft. Like he's one of the rare ones where he might not be the number one pick, but he's not going below 8 to 10 because he's so talented at that size. And 7-footers who can play. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of athletic 7-footers, cerebral 7-footers who understand spacing and spatial awareness. That's a whole different ballgame.
Yep, absolutely. The one other thing that I would add is I want to see him just start dunking on dudes, right? Like that was the one thing.
I don't think he can. I think like he's a quick finisher. I don't know that he's a guy that's going to explode because even though he is huge and he has big legs, like not a whole lot of ass there. And you got to have some ass to get up off the floor and be able to dunk on guys. And when he's dunking, he's not elbow at the rim dunking. He's basically as high as he needs to get and putting it in there. And he does it well, but he's not this insane athlete that is a guy that's going to set his feet quick and get off the floor. But he is massive, and position wise, he's going to put himself in position because he's smart.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's I think we're on the same page there. Whether you are a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. After a 6-month season loaded with cross-country travel, I can promise you that proper recovery is a priority for me these days. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of The Field of 68. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or the EE system. If you haven't heard of the EE system yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New Jersey or at one of the hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. If you're interested in experiencing the EE system technology for yourself, go to unifiedhealing.com/unified68 to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/UNIFYD, the number 6, the number 8. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including the EE system. All right, you've been teasing this NBA comparison for him on camera. You've been teasing it off camera. I've heard about it for weeks and weeks and months here. Who was your NBA comparison for?
Hey, look, this guy right here is a multi-time NBA All-Star. He was an Olympian. He is a rim protecting Brad Miller. People who see Brad Miller play back when he played for the Kings and back when he played for the Pacers, 7-footer who could pass it. You could run offense around him. He's a modern day version of that. Brad Miller was a really good player. I don't want people to take that the wrong way. He was a very good player who made multiple All-Star games. And you throw in more length and just a general cerebral approach to the game. I think defensively he's going to be there. He's longer. He's bigger. This is a guy that's going to provide value for a long time in the NBA as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, I saw Brad Miller in Scottsdale, actually, and he now has a beard down to here. He has like hair down to the middle of his back. Got a big old pot belly. Like he's
different guy. He's a different guy.
He looks like a guy that made a whole bunch of money in the NBA and has retired and has enjoyed that retirement thoroughly. My comparisons were Derek Lively, Walker Kessler, and Mark Williams in terms of like what he can be right on impact right away. Like
what's Mark Williams done?
The average, like,
as a Hornets guy, Mark Williams has done nothing so far. Let's just throw that out there.
He's averaging like 13. He's averaging like 13 and 10.
How many games?
According to ESPN, not a lot, not enough. Not enough like that.
He has done nothing.
No, but I think his defensive impact, I don't think it'll quite be what Walker Kessler is, but I think it could be close to that. I loved what Derek Lively was like the second half of the season. I thought he's been awesome in the playoffs. terms of keeping offensive rebounds alive and just kind of
those two are awesome athletes.
Yes,
that would be my only pushback there. Those two are awesome athletes,
and I think
I'm not sure Clingan is quite that guy.
I think Clingan's a little bit of a better passer as well than those two guys are. Like I'm not sure. I've seen Derek Lively make shots too. He shot it well when we saw him in Peach Jam in what was that 2021 a while ago. The COVID Jam, if you will. But yeah, I think that like those guys are kind of what you could pencil in for his impact. I like that Brad Miller comparison. That was pretty good. I did not see that one coming. So
yeah,
I don't hate it. Best case
he's a good
scenario,
player. I do think Donovan Clingan's like a second or third option on a playoff team in year 4, like a guy that you have 2 stars or you have 2 very good players. He's that third guy when you need something to go, you can run something through him, and then the offense just kind of settles down and you can run through some things.
Yeah.
And have actions on both sides because he's that good of a passer and he's that good of a playmaker.
Yeah.
I'm high on Donovan.
I am
Donovan
too.
Clingan's offense. I like a lot of people. The first thing 7'2", 2.5 blocks. The first thing is like, oh man, rim protection. I watched him play and just his processing power, how easily he was able to just change sides of the floor. Because while Hurley does, he runs a lot of complex things. As soon as the ball got to Clingan at the top, sometimes he would survey one side of the floor, nothing's happening. He would immediately get to the next right play. And that's what the NBA is all about, getting to the next right action as quickly and seamlessly as possible. That's where those high-level offenses score. I mean, look at the Miles Turners of the world. Like he gets the ball, it's directly to the other side. Jokic, he gets the ball, he surveys same side, surveys high-low, opposite side action. It happens quick. And I think because Donovan Clingan has that processing power, he's going to be able to be good for a long time, and you're going to be able to run things through him.
Yeah, that's why I'm really high on him, because I think that we know what he'll be defensively as the floor. And then all the stuff we talked about, the passing and the shooting and the potential for that to develop is how he would become, like that's how he gets to his ceiling, right?
Yeah.
So best case scenario, I have written down a career kind of on the same arc as Clint Capella. Now, I think that they're different players, but if you think of, it takes him 2, 3, 4 years to kind of get to that point where he's like a 12-10, 15-10. Then all of a sudden you're looking at like maybe a year where you get to like 16-11 with a couple blocks and a couple of assists. Once you kind of find that floor spacing, I think you can kind of have a 10 to 12 year career where you got like a 3 or 4 year window where you circle him as one of like the 10 best centers in the NBA. I think that that's kind of what the best case scenario is for him.
Who's that sound like?
Brad Miller. Yes. Yes.
No, I think it's going to take him some games. Like it's going to take him some time to understand how quickly you have to process these things, but he lands in the right situation with a coach who's willing to walk him through things early. You're going to see some huge dividends on the backside, provided that you're able to get, some high level guys around him, because he's going to be better. The better his team is, the better he's going to look. So I'm high on him. I think a high end second or third option if everything goes well health wise, and I think he'll make an all-star game or two. I don't think like he's going to be this every year all-star. I do think there's going to be some years where he's at 16, 8.5, and 4. And you're just like, man, he's one of the better 5-men in this game.
Yep. And it'll sneak up on us too. It'll be something where it's like, oh, remember Donovan Clingan was really good, and all of a sudden, boom, he has one of those breakout years that it just everything comes together, and you're like, oh shit, like this dude he can go.
He's a guy that coaches after games are going to be like, God, he just makes everything click for my team.
Yep. Worst case scenario, like when you got a 7-footer that's had multiple foot injuries, like it's, I don't even want to speak it into existence, but he's got to stay healthy. He's got to make sure that the things that he's dealt with were one-offs instead of
Eric Montross, rest in peace. Eric Montross type of career where he hangs around for a little while, but eventually it just kind of there's not a place for him. I just think that because he can facilitate, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
if he's healthy, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's got to be He's got to develop the jumper. He's got to make sure that passing continues to the next level. And, you got to have a little bit of injury luck. And if he does, then I think he's going to pleasantly surprise some people. I think that if he goes number one, and I do think there's a chance that he goes number one, I don't think that he's ever going to reach the heights of what you would expect a number one pick to get to. But I don't think that it's fair to put that level of expectation on someone just because they were the number one pick. So I like him.
If he goes number one, this is not an Anthony Bennett situation.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be either. But I think that people are going to label him as that because there are a lot of people out there with a lot of takes that aren't very smart.
Well, we don't know that he's going number one either.
We don't.
We don't. Whoever goes number one in this draft, there's going to be unfair expectations.
Absolutely. All right, listen, that was the NBA draft prospect profile, breakdown, scouting report, however you want to phrase it, of Donovan Clingan. We are going to be rolling these out over the course of the next month. Make sure you keep it tuned to Field of 68. We're going to have a live mock draft here coming up soon, about a week and a half before the NBA draft actually happens. Maybe we'll even get T.O. in on that because he says he hasn't been working. We got to put this guy to work, make sure that he's got stuff going on. You can't be too quiet over there at your house. We know you don't have many friends, so you got a lot of time.
I don't have any friends. My wife told me I don't have any friends.
T.O., always a pleasure, man. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.